Sarada versus Cho-Cho in the Chunin exam. Need I say more?
It's going down! Shit is going down!
Powerful Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby. Things get emotional and epic in the next round of the Chunin Re-Examination arc as Sarada throws down with her best friend, Cho-Cho. Before we go into the review, if you guys are not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. For those who are already subscribed, make sure you're hitting the bell notification button. It'll let you know when all of my videos are officially released. And of course, if you like this video, go ahead, power up into your butterfly form, activate your Sharingan, and absolutely destroy the like button. Helps out these videos a lot. You can also consider checking out my Patreon page where you can make a small donation to the channel. It'll go a long way in helping support it. Not to mention, I would love to add your name to this list of all of these amazing people that you are currently looking at right now. I've added a few more recently, and I cannot thank you guys enough for making these donations. It really does mean a lot. But let's go ahead and jump into this episode right here, which is without a shadow of a doubt the best fight that we've had in this Chunin Re-Examination arc. There's certainly been some highlights. Inojin vs. Hoki was really freaking awesome. Wasabi vs. Iwabe was pretty divisive amongst the fan base. But Sarada vs. Cho-Cho has a lot of weight behind it. And no, that's not a joke on Cho-Cho's part. It wouldn't be the first time in the entire Boruto or Naruto anime franchise that we've seen best friends fight against each other. In fact, it might be one of the cornerstones of the entire friggin' franchise. But this one right here was certainly the first battle that really was kind of interesting because it was going to completely change one of these characters. I mean, we're really close to the manga version of Boruto, and we don't know if any of these characters were going to become Chunin or not, but now we're going to figure out who they're going to be in this arc right here, and I really didn't know how this episode was going to go down, although, as I said in my previous review, my prediction was that Sarada was certainly going to win this fight. In fact, if you haven't watched this episode, go ahead and go do that now and come back to this review, as I am going to be talking about all of the major spoilers here. So, before we even get to the whole Sarada-Cho-Cho fight, we did have a scene that I was actually kind of anxious to see, which was an interaction between Kawaki and Shinki, and I was kind of hoping maybe we would get like a no-holds-barred fight from one of these characters. Essentially, Kawaki gets really bored, he doesn't want to watch the Chunin exams anymore, but Shinki decides to follow him outside of the stadium, saying that maybe he should stay behind and watch it, and he essentially forces him to do so when Kawaki attacks him, and Shinki just ends up making him look like a punk. This was a really great scene. It was a battle of two edgelords, and honestly, I thought it was really awesome. It also made me realize that, wow, Shinki is really not used enough. This character is freaking awesome, and I would like to have a full-blown battle between these two characters, but essentially, Kawaki ends up getting his clock clean thanks to his black sand, and he decides to go back and watch the rest of this battle, which is Sarada versus Cho-Cho, and it's pretty much everything that you would expect from these characters, utilizing all of their signature techniques. Cho-Cho utilizing her expansion abilities, transforming into a giant rolling ball, Sarada using Sharingan with a little bit of fire style techniques, not to mention even some lightning styled ones, which were pretty awesome. We also had some really solid fighting choreography from both of them, but of course, the main emotional crux of this episode has got to be the fact that Sarada is kind of holding back on Cho-Cho, and this really pisses her off. She wants her to give it her all. This is an important battle between both of these characters, and considering the development that Sarada's been getting over the last couple of episodes, especially involving the training that she's had with Sasuke, her father, she realizes that she has to go all in, and this is basically where the battle starts to intensify and get really freaking interesting. It's also where the budget started to go a little crazier, because both of the characters finally started to reveal their trump card abilities, and honestly, it was pretty great. It was cool to see the return of Cho-Cho utilizing that butterfly transformation again, because again, it's just a flashy, really cool looking technique, and of course Sarada using the Chidori technique, and basically it just ends with both of the characters plowing into one another. As the smoke clears, we get to see who the winner is going to be, and no shock, no surprise to me anyway, Sarada is the winner. Cho-Cho loses, so from this point on, Sarada is officially a Chunin, which is Really interesting, as none of this has been brought up in the manga version at all, as the current arc that's going on there actually takes place after all of this. Although she hasn't had a very large role to play in that current arc thus far, it's kind of weird that she hasn't mentioned her whole Chunin status yet, although they probably haven't been including her or even bring that up for the fear of giving away this brand new development here. It's kind of interesting to know that the first member of Team 7 to become a Chunin is going to be none other than Sarada. Now, originally I thought they were going to try and cop out on us. I thought we were going to get something of a draw, or maybe they were going to knock each other out and no one was going to become a Chunin. But no, Sarada ends up taking it. She proved that her resolve was a little bit stronger, and like I said, there's no way she was going to lose to Cho-Cho. I mean, she wasn't even utilizing like her superpowered like punching abilities that she inherited from Sakura, which if she did use here, she would have absolutely wrecked Cho-Cho. That's just the way that it would have gone down. And while Cho-Cho is of course really upset, she does get some consolement from her teammates in a scene which I have to say is lighthearted and actually kind of funny, especially with Inojin claiming that, well, I guess they're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer before they decide to wear those vests along with Shikadai. So the characters have actually grown a little bit in this episode, and we actually managed to get some pretty cool action out of it. But there's also that other little subplot about all of those guys who kidnapped Amato, and now they're suddenly all in these weird butler outfits, and I got a lot of people who are saying that I was complaining a little too much about these guys, how they could have been more important, maybe they were members of Kara. Guess what? Big shock, they're not important at freaking all. Their entire point of being around here is to waste time. That is why they were created for this arc. Their plan involves kidnapping Amato so that they can force him to utilize his ability to create scientific technology for their village, which has no name, no explanation behind it. They're just bad guys to be bad guys, and Boruto and Mitsuki are there to save the day, which is to say Mitsuki grabs him with his stretchy arms, they create a massive explosion, and they leave. These villains sucked. End of story. And basically it all ends with Boruto and Mitsuki as they make their way back to the Chunin exam arena, where we actually don't get an announcement on what the next fight is going to be. Of course, they're trying to build a little bit of tension on what could happen. Will Boruto and Mitsuki make it in time? If you look at the preview, though, it's going to completely spoil what the next fight is going to be. Again, spoiler warning if you haven't even looked at that. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that right now. It looks like it's going to be Denki going up against Tsubaki. Yes, it's going to be the little scientific kid going up against the samurai girl, and they completely ruin what he's actually going to do in the next episode, which honestly, I think looks kind of exciting and cool. I'd say this is one of the fights I'm looking forward to see the most, if only to see how far Denki has come as a person, and what sort of crazy scientific things he's going to do, and hell, Tsubaki could also surprise us as well, with the big shock that she's eventually going to be returning to the Land of Iron. Maybe there's something that's going to happen in this episode that's going to force her to stay along with her teammates. I have a feeling that's the direction that they're actually going to go in. That being said, I'm excited, but by giving us what the fight is going to be in the next episode, we already know what the finals are going to be, which is going to be Boruto versus Mitsuki, which is very interesting, I have to say. One of these characters is going to become a Chunin, and again, I can't quite predict what it's going to be, and I really hope that they kind of go all out in that episode, as it's going to be sort of like a great way to end all of this. That being said, what's the rundown on this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations? This one was honestly okay, pretty exciting, maybe one of the best of this entire Chunin exam. Sarada versus Cho-Cho was immediately interesting just because it was a battle between friends, but from the get-go, I had a feeling that Sarada just had way too much of an advantage in this battle, and it does make sense. I mean, the first half of the fight, she's really holding her own against Cho-Cho, and she's not even trying all that much. Of course, this ends up bringing out the fire in Cho-Cho a little bit, but in turn, it also makes Sarada give it her all, which ultimately does give her the edge. That's not to say that Cho-Cho's abilities are not something to guffaw at. I mean, the butterfly ability is incredibly powerful. We've seen that many times in the series. But up against an Uchiha with the power of Sakura behind it, you're just not gonna beat Sarada. It's just not the way it's gonna go down. But it still had some pretty good moments. I do gotta give some props to some of the animation and choreography in this episode. While not the most mind-blowing that I've seen from the series, it was fast-paced, it was hard-hitting. There was a lot of slamming into freaking concrete walls in this episode, and some really big, impactful punches and attacks. And it really just intensified the action of this episode. I also really like the fact that Sasuke was indeed watching his daughter during this fight, but doing it in that cool, sort sort of brooding, hiding in the darkness kind of way. That's just the way that Sasuke kind of rolls. Otherwise, this was an okay episode. I think definitely still one of the better battles in this Chunin exam arc, and definitely I think maybe my favorite thus far, which is why I'm going to give this episode a 4 out of 5. As for the whole subplot of Boruto and Mitsuki, they just had to keep them away for just a little bit to build up the tension of their fight. Those villains sucked. They had nothing special about them. I think we could have all predicted that from when they first actually appeared. They were served as nothing more of a distraction, and in that sense, I guess they did their job. Still, there it is. That's this episode right here. We still got 2 big fights to look forward to, and who knows what the future is going to bring, as again, we're just so close to the manga version, and the anime at this point has got to be completely creative in some of the stories that they're going to have to come up with, and whether they're good or bad remains to be seen. But so far, it's still very watchable, and something that I think all fans of the franchise should definitely consider checking out. But I'd really love to get your thoughts about this episode. Like I said, I liked this one. It wasn't perfect, but still very entertaining. Maybe you liked it more, maybe you liked it less. Tell me why in the comments section below what you thought about this big battle between Sarada and Cho-Cho, the big shock that Sarada is now a Chunin character, and what are you looking forward to in these final 2 battles? That's right, Denki versus Tsubaki, and of course, Boruto versus Mitsuki. Thoughts, opinions, theories, let's talk all about it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.